Carbohydrates provide energy for your body and brain, but a diet that is high in quick digesting carbs blocks weight loss. So how do you strike a balance between providing your body and brain with energy while allowing weight loss to happen? And if carbs are truly a weight loss barrier, would it be best to just do without them completely? We'll explore those topics in this two-part video series. The dietary reference intakes published by the National Academies Press states that the lower limit of dietary carbohydrate compatible with life apparently is 0, provided that adequate amounts of protein and fat are consumed. Now, they throw in the word apparently, but in essence, what they are saying is that you do not need to eat carbs to survive as long as you are taking in a sufficient amount of protein and fat. So how does your body run without carbohydrates? Well, to understand that, let's take a look at what happens inside of you when you cut carbs. Your digestive tract breaks down the carbohydrates that you eat into simple sugar molecules called glucose. The amount of glucose in your blood affects two important hormones that influence your metabolism. They are insulin and glucagon. I talk a lot about insulin on my channel and typically describe it as your fat-storing hormone. So we want to keep that one low, which is what happens when you do cut carbs. But what we also see is that this low insulin state triggers the secretion of glucagon. Glucagon can be thought of as the opposite of insulin because it raises your blood sugar. And it does this by stimulating glycogenolysis, which is a term that literally means glycogen breakdown. Glycogen is the storage form of glucose. It is basically just glucose molecules bonded together, and you have about 100 grams or 400 calories worth of glucose stored in your liver. When you stop eating carbs, your liver breaks down its glycogen stores and sends the free glucose molecules out into your bloodstream to keep your blood glucose at an acceptable level. And not to get too far off track, but it's worth mentioning that glycogen holds a lot of water in your body. And this explains why low-carb dieters have an initial drop in water weight. You stop eating carbs, glycogen stores get depleted, and water is excreted. It also explains why low-carb dieters that have a cheat meal that is high in carbs will see a temporary but seemingly unfair weight gain when they step on the scale the next time. The carbs replenish your glycogen stores, and water retention causes the spike in water weight. So to get back to our focus, we just learned that your liver can break down and release stored glucose when you first start your low-carb diet. If you continue to restrict carbs, your liver will ramp up another process called gluconeogenesis, which, if we jumble the term around, literally means making new glucose from non-carbohydrate substrates or particles. So we're seeing that even when you don't eat carbs, your body has some pretty amazing mechanisms to ensure that you maintain an adequate level of glucose in your blood. But some of you might think that this is a silly or frustrating thing for your body to do. After all, you are cutting carbs so you can keep glucose and insulin low. And now here your body is working against your efforts by making brand new glucose. But our bodies are much smarter than we are. As it turns out, you always need some glucose in your body because some of your cells must have it. And I will talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But for now, let's look at what happens as you continue to restrict carbs. So we now know that your liver can free stored glucose and it can make new glucose. But if you're taking in too few dietary carbs, your body needs another form of energy to properly run your body and brain. And this is when your body switches fat burning into high gear. Fat is stored in your fat cells as triglycerides. It's basically 3 fatty acids attached to a glycerol backbone. Enzymes cleave the fatty acids off of the backbone, and these free fatty acids go into your bloodstream where your tissues can grab them and take them in and use them directly for energy. Your heart and skeletal muscles are 2 tissues that run very well on fatty acids. But not all of your cells can use fatty acids directly for energy. For instance, your red blood cells cannot use fatty acids because they don't have mitochondria, which are those tiny powerhouses that will convert these more complex fatty acids into energy. but your blood cells can run on glucose, which is a very simple molecule. So fueling your blood cells is one of the reasons why your liver continually makes glucose even if you're not eating carbs or fasting. Your brain is another organ that runs on glucose but can't run directly on free fatty acids, and that's because these fatty acid molecules are too big to get through your blood-brain barrier. Your brain is a big energy user and obviously very important. So your body works very hard to keep it supplied with enough energy. And this is a balancing act when you reduce carbs. If you're following a well-formulated low-carb diet, you are taking in the right mix of carbs, fat, and protein to meet your body and brain's needs. And many people will find that a low-carb diet allows them to lose weight at a nice, steady, and consistent pace. But some people will find that their bodies will not burn fat efficiently unless they drastically reduce the number of carbs they are eating, which drops them into the ketogenic range. A ketogenic diet is a very low-carb diet, so low in fact that your liver may not be able to make enough new glucose to properly feed your brain. But luckily, your brain is a hybrid organ. It runs well on two fuels, glucose and ketones, which are both small enough to cross over the blood-brain barrier. So when glucose is insufficient, your liver makes ketone bodies from the breakdown products of fatty acid oxidation. And it's interesting to note that there's no clear line that your body draws when it comes to making ketones. If you've been on a low-carb diet, but not a keto diet for a period, it's not unusual for your body to be making ketones as they are needed. I'm an example of this. I follow a low-carb diet that hovers between 50 to 100 grams of carbs per day. So my typical diet is not keto, but it is not unusual for me to test my blood after intermittent fasting or a particularly low-carb day and see that I have ketones circulating in my blood. So if fewer carbs are beneficial, would the no-carb carnivore diet be the best diet? Well, I will share my insights on that topic in part 2, which is coming up in next week's video. So please subscribe and watch for that video. And if you're interested in trying a low-carb or keto diet to see if it will work for you, but you're not sure how to go about it, I encourage you to take one of my 21-day challenges. I have a low-carb and a keto challenge available, and you can learn which one is right for you from the links provided. Thanks.